Hello everyone, many thanks for joining us today to look at what's new in Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm Warren Butler, Head of Marketing at Preact, and I'm joined by my colleague Daniel Hunter, who will be leading the live demonstration today. Dynamics 365 version 9 is now available for new implementations. And in this session, we'll provide an introduction to this major new release for existing Dynamics users who will shortly be able to upgrade. We'll share some background about the structure of Dynamics 365 and how this has changed, and also how the product is expected to evolve in the future. In today's live demonstration, we'll feature the new unified user interface, as well as a refreshed version of the regular web interface. We'll also demonstrate a series of further enhancements, including new multi-select field options, new capabilities for virtual entities, and an improvement to advanced find searches. Finally, we'll touch on some legacy features that are being deprecated with the release of version 9. That sets us up for a busy session, and with a lot of points to cover. Our aim really is to give you a broad overview of this release rather than a deep dive on any of these topics. We'll be on hand to answer your questions at the end of the demonstration. All lines are muted, but please use the chat panel to ask questions as we go, and we'll pick these up in a Q&A session before we wrap up. A little bit of background about us. Preact is a CRM partner leading with Microsoft Dynamics 365. We provide help to implement and support Dynamics 365 and CRM related requirements. In many instances, we do this through a managed service agreement. In addition to phone support, this includes training, consultancy, and development work that enables organizations to delegate Dynamics tasks to our team and get access to advice that helps to extend the benefits of the system. Trading since 1993, today Preact supports more than 7,000 Dynamics users across multiple industry sectors. If you'd like advice about any Dynamics requirements, which might include updating to this new release, we'd be very happy to hear from you. Before we kick off the demonstration, it's worth spending a few minutes to look at the structure of Dynamics 365 and how this changes with the release of version 9. In the 10 years that Preact has worked with Dynamics, we've seen the footprint of the product grow significantly as Microsoft has added new capabilities. In just the last couple of years, that's included the addition of field service and project service. And with new features, apps, and services being added, Dynamics CRM was at some risk of being seen as a rather unwieldy product, and this had implications for the development and integration of the product. Where Microsoft shared its vision for Dynamics 365 and how Dynamics CRM would transition to this, an important part of their message was how the new product would unify business processes across a suite of connected apps. In Dynamics 365 version 9, the emergence of an app-centric structure is clearer to see, as there is now a separation between the code for the platform and role-based apps. Microsoft has reorganized the management and the development of its Dynamics 365 apps along the lines of the structure shown here, with the aim of increasing the rate of its releases. For example, by separating out the code and the management of Dynamics 365 sales, future updates can be released independently of the platform and independent of any work in progress for Dynamics service-based apps and vice versa. Whereas we've tended to see 2 significant Dynamics updates each year, our expectation is that there will be now a more frequent flow of smaller releases at different time points for these apps. And this is likely to be similar to how Microsoft releases cloud updates for Power BI and other cloud service products. While the release cadence for individual Dynamics 365 apps is now independent, these remain connected across the same architecture where all data is brought together within the common data service. An important part within this architecture is Microsoft Flow, as this is the workflow engine of the Microsoft Cloud. Through this integration, Flow is the means for automating processes between Dynamics 365, Office 365 apps, and other cloud services to shortcut repetitive tasks by delivering notifications, synchronizing data, and automating approvals. In the demonstration, we'll take a look at new native Flow integration for Dynamics. Another significant part of version 9 that I want to highlight is the new unified user interface. This has been designed to address inconsistencies in the Dynamics interface between web and mobile, as well as Outlook. UUI will address functionality gaps between these interfaces, and it also deals with the challenge that many CRM administrators have faced in managing multiple forms for each record type to make sure that these are optimized for both web and mobile. A fundamental difference is the new unified grid control that will display the same way across any platform to replace layers of multiple grids. The consistency of this display brings in things like text wrapping, font standardization, white space reduction, and means that with the same control, form customizations only need to be applied once. The UUI represents the future direction that Microsoft is taking with the product's developments, and an example of this is the launch of the new customer service hub that Daniel will be covering shortly. However, there are some limitations with the initial release of the UUI, and many Dynamics administrators will likely want to delay enabling this on their live system for the moment, but certainly moving into 2018, we do expect to see an increased rollout of the unified interface as Microsoft bring further enhancements to this. In the interim, the recommendation for many version 9 upgrades will be to deploy a newly refreshed web interface for version 9 that we'll be demonstrating. So on that point, I'm going to hand over to Daniel for the live demonstration.
Thanks very much, Warren. Just let me wait for my presentation links to come over, and we'll get started with this aspect of this. There we go. So just open up my screen now, and hopefully that should all just be working fine. Okay, so we've heard a lot about new stuff, basically, from Warren, and we're going to be covering the majority of it in some way, shape or form this afternoon. We've got, I think, about 35-40 minutes, so we've got plenty of time to at least touch on most of the updates to version 9 that have been in product since the recent release, and stuff that your existing customers are going to have access to come the customer-driven update. I think we're expecting to see that from late December, maybe January, depending on how Microsoft want to roll that out. But starting off the session today, we're going to be looking at the web UI refresh. So what people are going to be seeing almost immediately with new version 9 and how this is going to impact them. So welcome to version 9. This is version 9. You might notice a few cosmetic differences in the way that the dashboard is laid out here, but it's not very vastly different from previous versions, particularly version 8.2 of Dynamics 365. However, once we get into the actual innards of the system, so if I go into my list of accounts, immediately you'll notice a difference about how this information is being displayed. So it's much clearer. We've got standardization on fonts across the platform, so there's no more mix and match different types of fonts depending on where you're looking. And if we just sort of compare this to, this is 8.2 here, much easier to read, much easier to navigate, it's easier to look into. So if I head into an account form here, immediately we'll start noticing the differences in how the web UI has been refreshed. So immediately you'll see gone are, again, I've got a comparison here of the old version of Dynamics 365 lots of white space, various types of fonts all over the place, no segmentation in areas, difficult to navigate, no clear idea of what is a blank field and what's not. I head back to the new UI. We've got nicely segmented areas for information. We've got the idea of clearly labeled blank areas, so you can see when a field is blank. They've brought in the context, the concept of coloured tabs. So you can see here my context tab, lovely, what do you call that, purple. Opportunities I've got as a light blue, so you can segment out different areas and make it visibly easy for people to navigate around the system. An example of this, if I just scroll down a little bit here, we'll see I've got a area down here for my cases. I've got high priority cases with a nice red, normal priority cases with a nice yellow, low priority cases with a nice green. So you use your imagination about how you can utilize this functionality, but it's a standard part of the system now. Other changes that have been made from a UI point of view include word wrapping on field labels. So previously, where you had a field length label that was basically longer than this, you'd lose the rest of it, wouldn't be able to see it. Now you're able to wrap these longer field label names so that they're all readable and accessible for people to use. Okay, what else do I need to put out here? Yeah, customized form levels. Yeah, we've got all that. Okay, so this is the new UI. It's much cleaner. As I said, the white spacing has all been removed and all the areas around here are all segmented out. It's not vastly different from the previous UI from 8.2, so there's not going to be a lot of relearning required. It's just basically simplification, making it easier to navigate, easier to read, and using most of the screen real estate as opposed to the white spacing which was prevalent with the previous versions of CRM. Okay, so moving on here, let me just go back over to here and we'll head into the concept of multi-select option sets. Now for some, this might seem like a small change. For us in the CRM space, this is something that Dynamics has been missing for a long time. And I'll give you a quick look at how this can sort of work. So you're used to the traditional option set. You have a drop down, you select one thing from it, and that is then the value from it. I've got my account type down the bottom here, and you'll notice that this has actually got multiple things in it. So this, in this case, this account here could be a customer and a supplier and a vendor. And if I pull the drop down here, we've got the same kind of option set functionality, but now we can select more than one at a time. So in those use cases where you've got that kind of thing, you no longer need to be building sort of complex external entity relationships between these things. You just deploy a multi-select option set. And because of this new type of functionality with option sets, obviously searching has needed to kind of adapt to make these usable within the search. So if I go up to my advanced find up here, in this particular case, this field is helpfully called the multi-select field to help me find it quickly. There we go. So with the multi-select field now, we've got a number of different options to be able to find what we need. So we can say multi-select contains values. So I can select one or more of the values in here. So if I, in this case, I'll select prospect. So I want to find all accounts that are a prospect, do my results. Didn't take my full, hang on. Head back to here. Yes, thank you. Just save that. There we go. I'm back into the advanced find. Thank you. Multi-select. There he is. So contains values is obviously finding stuff that contains those particular values. Now, we could also search for things that equal. So if I say I want to find things where it equals prospect, supplier, and vendor, that becomes then more of an and search or an or search. So you've got full capabilities of searching these multi-select fields still within that advanced find framework. So it's all supported within the platform. Okay, so speaking of advanced find, a new function in advanced find now is the ability to do not searches. And by that I mean, so for example, if I head back to my advanced find here, there we go. So I'm just going to clear my search here. Something that has not been previously thing that you could do with searching in Dynamics 365 is to say, okay, I've got a long list of accounts. I want you to show me all the accounts that have got no contacts. So basically searching for things that aren't there. This is now functionality within Dynamics 365. So if I go to accounts here and I go scroll down to my related entities and I say, okay, I select contacts here. There we go. I can click here and say, show me everything. You'll see that at the moment, conditions cannot be added under this. So this will just return now all accounts that have no associated contacts. When I hit results here, hopefully, oh, Microsoft, hang on. Let's try that again. Okay. Good old demos. Actually, let me just give it a refresh on here. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. This might be something we need to come back to, but let's just give this one more try. I have faith. Yeah, lovely. And here we go. Really? Yeah, okay, we might need to come back to this in a minute. I have to refresh the page. Oh, yeah, okay. Issues. Let me just hit refresh on here and we'll come back to this one a little bit later on. So basically that functionality with advanced searching, you can report on, say, for example, you wanted to find an account where had no related activities of a certain type, so no related phone calls over a period, you could say that. Okay, so pushing on here. So Warren mentioned quite a lot up front about the new unified user interface, and this is probably quite a big deal with Dynamics version 9. If I just head back to my thing here, and we're going to flip over to the customer service hub. So this is a different interface. I can see here I've got my Dynamics version 9 interface, the standard web UI. I've also got the idea of the customer service hub. Now, for some of you, this might look fairly familiar. It is a kind of evolution of what was previously known as the interactive service hub. But the benefit here being, this is now an interface that is unified across platform. So whether you're accessing via a phone or accessing via your tablet or accessing via the web, you'll get the same experience, the same feels, the same look and feel to various things. So as of version 9, those of you that have been using the previous Dynamics 365 app for either mobile or tablet, this will all be replaced with this new unified user interface. Okay, so some of these things again will be familiar from the old ISH concept, but this is the customer service hub. So I'm looking at service cases here. I've got my top level visual filters, so I can click on any of these things. If I click on, say, I just want to see high priority cases, everything underneath here will sort of fold down to only give me that stuff. And I can add as many of these as I want. So if I just want to see web cases that are high priority, as I click in these things, what is shown then is filtered back down. So if I head into a case record here, we'll see how the new unified user interface looks as opposed to the web interface. So immediately, you'll notice at the top, we've got the return of tabs in Dynamics 365. Tabs used to be a thing back in sort of CRM 2011, CRM version 4 days. They were retired in favor of the top level functionality up here. Now that this is one interface, basically for every type of interaction that you're having, the idea of tabs has now a good use case again. So I can see here I've got my form, and if I scroll across here, I can actually tab across to various areas within my form. As we go through here, so case relationships, and then I've got my related entities hanging off at the side here. One other thing you will probably may have noticed, may not have noticed, is the navigation for the unified user interface has moved from the top. So up here, I've no longer got navigation that I can click on. to the side. So, and again, when we look at the other interface types, we'll look at tablet, we'll look at phone in a little bit. We'll have this same user experience across all those platforms. So if I want to go to my list of accounts, I pull out my side tab here and navigate that way. We've got the idea of business processes has been kind of evolved with version 9 in the UUI. So if I click on my business process up here, I can now pop this out. So if I'm finding it difficult to navigate up here, I can actually have my stage here with all the stages that I need to do to get to my thing as a separate area within the application. So it makes it easier to read, easier to work through. And more importantly, we've got the idea now of the timeline. So this is an improved, basically what used to be the what still is the activity pane in the web UI, but with the unified interface, this is now called the timeline. And in the timeline, we have one view for all types of activity. So including notes, all that other stuff that's segmented out with the in the area, all this stuff here now appears in the one view that I can do. So we can add anything from here. I could add a new note, I can add a new appointment, task, whatever else through that view. I've got the idea of filtering within there. So if I want to open my filter pane, I can now filter out my types of activities by type or whether they're overdue or not, and that sort of thing. So while we're just on this subject, so I'll drag this over here. So this is now same interface, but on a phone. So if I go to my active cases here, I can go into a case and immediately you'll see it's not a separate mobile app anymore. I've got my same interface that we're looking at here on my phone. So it's exactly the same. And if we go to my tablet, again, go to my active cases here, in my tablet view, I'm using having that same visual user experience across the three platforms. There we go. So again, this is my tablet app, whether this is an iPad or a Windows device or whatever else, same interface across all three platforms. So this is the way that Microsoft see this going forward. There's, you're not going to have to mess around with different interfaces, different form types, depending on how you're accessing it. It's all the same form. You've got access to all the same stuff in that environment. Okay, just going to drop this one down here for a minute, and we're going to just have a little play with the mobile app while we've got it open. So I'm on my case form here, and I can see if I scroll down here, I've got all the same fields and forms on. I've got the same idea of the timeline, but because I'm on a mobile app, I've also got the ability to click, take pictures. There we go, take a picture of my screen, lovely. Use that, and that will then stick that in from my device as a note. So there we go, here's my photo, click done there and add that. And then from my mobile device, I've now added a new note to this case. So let me just scroll up the top here so I can remind myself which case this was. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to head back to my cases now. It's a normal priority care. There we go, here it is. So when I navigate into here now, you'll notice immediately there's a bit of new information appeared in the timeline, and also a bit of new information to tell me that stuff has happened on this case. Oh, okay, it's not going to. But what would happen if I'd logged in as somebody else would be the little box up here saying stuff that happened on this case since the last time you looked at this record. So I'll be able to segment out between history that I've already seen and history that's happened on a case since the last time I looked at it. So again, more functionality around usability, ease of use from the unified user interface. But that doesn't really end there. If I head over to my next area, we'll look at more of the sort of the concept of that when we looked at Customer Service Hub, but how this hub concept applies with the Outlook app and the mobile app. So I'm going to head back to over here, and I'm heading into my emails. So got my emails here, and on the side here, now the app for Dynamics 365 version 9 currently is still in the preview stage. So things are like maybe might change with this over time, but the base functionality of this is there. And we can see here, I've got same sort of view of functionality that I had with my standard unified user interface app. So I've got a tracked email here. If I click on the contact, I can now from my Outlook, so whether I'm in Outlook in the cloud, Outlook on my desktop, have access to that same information from within Outlook now. So I've got access to my timeline. I've got access to my recent opportunities, recent cases, all the stuff that we need here. I've also got quick create functionality in my Outlook app. So I can create a new account, I can create a new case, a competitor or whatever else, all through my Outlook app. And I've also got availability to do relevance search. So full search capabilities from my Outlook. So if I just do there we go. And that will go away, use relevance search within Dynamics 365 and return all the various records that it finds. So again, yes, it's an app within Outlook, but it's part of that hub concept of Dynamics unified user interface. It basically means wherever you're accessing from, you'll get a very, very similar experience. There's not 3 different interfaces for one application anymore. It's this is the application, this is the interface that you're going to be using. Get used to this because you're going to have access to everything wherever you are. And again, that applies pretty much wherever you are in the interface itself. So some other bits and pieces that have changed with the unified user interface here. If I go over to my knowledge articles, so I'm back into my customer service hub here, and I'm looking at my knowledge base articles. Now, if we go into a knowledge base article here, previously rich editing for knowledge base articles was a thing. This has been improved with version 9, and also we've got the idea now of the preview of a knowledge article. So if I can see down at the bottom here, I've got my designer. We've got the ability to actually edit the raw HTML of that if that's a requirement that you have. But also I can now preview how these knowledge articles are going to be looking on various types of device. So again, here I've got what does it look like on my desktop? What's it look like on a tablet? What's it look like on a mobile device? So you can make sure it's readable, easy to navigate as a knowledge base article, particularly important when you're kind of integrating this with the portal technology, for example. People can be accessing that on various form factors, so it's good to have this preview functionality built in. Okay, we looked at process flows, we looked at activity management, knowledge management, lovely, and okay. So what time is it? 28 past. Okay, they need to crack on. So more interesting improvements with version 9, the security improvements. So these kind of snuck in under the wire, but they are quite important to a lot of various customers. I just head back over to here. So again, this is something at the moment that you need to use Web UI for. As Warren mentioned up front, there is a limited set of functionality that's not currently available through the UUI, and that will be increased by Microsoft as they go through their release cycle. If I go into my administration area here, head into system settings. At the bottom of system settings, we'll notice now we've got the idea of timeouts and inactivity timeouts. So if you've got a requirement that, for example, if you don't interact with Dynamics 365 for a certain number of minutes, or you wanted to automatically log you out every 5 minutes, and so that you know, if you walk away from the desk, you're not leaving the system open, that's now standard functionality within Dynamics 365. It's been a big change for them. It being a web app, there are certain challenges around this sort of thing, but this is now standard functionality within the platform. So as the system administrator, you will be able to set your maximum session length. So it will automatically ask you to log in, re-credentialize after a certain number of minutes. So maybe you want to do that 3 times a day or whatever else, but also timeouts. So if you don't do anything, if you walk away from your desk, how long before it automatically logs you out? So it gets the admin level controls, but very useful in terms of controlling security and access to potentially confidential systems and that sort of thing from Dynamics 365. So works well as part of an overall security model within Dynamics, and it's something that's never really previously been available without expensive third-party apps and stuff like that. Okay, so just pop back to here again, and now virtual entities. Now, I've had a number of conversations with a number of different people about virtual entities, and it's not a massively easy concept to understand. So I'm going to go through it and explain what you can do. But if there's any questions about this, this is one of the things that I'm kind of expecting a lot of questions at the end. But virtual entities in Dynamics version 9 are basically the ability to add data from external systems or web services as data that doesn't really exist, so that's why it's virtual, inside your Dynamics 365 instance. So let me just, so if I go to my settings area here, we'll go to virtual entities data sources. So what I've done here for the purposes of this demonstration is basically I've connected to an external OData for data endpoint, one of the Microsoft available endpoints that they just have available for testing purposes here. This is the Northwind OData endpoint, and I've exposed a virtual entity through my thing as an entity here. So I've called it, these are ERP orders. So this is representing another system that we're then connecting to, pulling data in via a web service and consuming. So these exist as read-only records. Well, they don't exist as records at all, but they are presented as read-only records in our system. So obviously we can't change these from Dynamics 365, but we can have visibility of data points from external websites, external web resources through virtual entities into Dynamics 365. Now, Microsoft provide the OData 4 provider with Dynamics 365. So if you've got an OData 4 feed, then you can connect straight to it. If you've got other ones, then custom applications can be created to connect to those other sorts of data endpoints to bring this sort of information within Dynamics. So it's a bit of a complicated one from trying to explain it on a 5-minute demo point of view. But if I again go back to my account record here with my pretty colors on the bars, we'll see I've got a subgrid down here. So these records don't exist within CRM. They exist within this, this fictional ERP system that I'm connecting to. But I can see these orders from Dynamics 365. So it's kind of taking away some of that reliance on integration, sort of replicating data from one system to another, purely for the purposes of having the visibility of it. We can get visibility of these records directly through a virtual entity, consuming it via a web service. So we can, any of the fields that you can have exposed can be exposed through the web service into Dynamics 365 and then presented to a user in that way. Now, there are quite a lot of limitations around what you can do with virtual entities at the moment. But again, this is one of the focuses of Microsoft's investment plan for Dynamics 365. And these things are only going to get more useful and impressive over time. But what you can do with them now is fairly impressive. This has never been something that's been standard before, and now this is part of the standard functionality. So how these are done, you create these effectively in your administration center as there's a box called tick as a virtual entity. You define the data point you connect to, you tell it what you want from it, and then you pull those fields through, and it's just very similar to any other kind of Dynamics customization in that way. Okay, so heading on, and next on the agenda, Flow. So again, I know Warren spoke a little bit about Flow before we started and mentioned that Microsoft Flow is the Microsoft workflow engine for the cloud. Now, yes, what does that mean though? Okay, so I've got an example here of an account. Now, if I head over to my thing here, I've got the Flows button. So I can actually run external workflows. So it's connecting to different systems, not just, it's not Dynamics, and it's not a Dynamics 365 workflow. It's a workflow that's going to do stuff automatically in other systems. So in this case, I've got a flow that makes a post to a team that I'm a member of. So if you're integrated with Microsoft Teams, I'm just going to hit that there. There we go. It'll bring up a little confirmation window to say, you sure you want to run this flow? I'll say, yes, definitely, I want to run this flow. And then we'll hit that, and then we'll see what happens. So here we go, post to Teams. Got a little bit of information here. What does this flow actually do? So that's just a bit of description there. It's going to create some posts within Teams. So I'll run my flow. That's done. And I'll head over to my team. And as if by magic, now we've had a post in our team site, pulling from information pulling from Dynamics 365, information just straightly happening across cloud platforms. Similarly, if I head back to my web viewer here, and I'll go to a quote. So let's find my quote. There we go. Yep, this sample quote. So I'll head into my quote here. I've got a flow for quotes set up that actually runs a sample kind of approval process on a quote. So again, using Flow, using the approvals process in Flow, will send out an email to a specified individual or group of individuals and ask for approval for this particular quote. So we're just going to wait for this to pop up. There we go. Run my flow. Lovely. And in this case, I am both the approver and the approvee, the ideal state for any salesperson, but just hang on for it. There we go. So that flow is now kicked off an approvals process inside flow. There we go. I need to say whether I approve this sample quote. I can approve it. I can reject it. In this case, absolutely, I'm going to approve it. So there we go. Just put a comment in there. Please proceed. Submit that. So that sits within the approvals area of flow, goes away, and again, goes back to flow, runs the next step of the process. There we go. And there we go. So quote has been approved by, in this case, me, but please proceed. So this sort of functionality can all be started from within Dynamics 365. And you can also have flows that are monitoring Dynamics 365 and doing stuff when stuff happens, similar to the workflow engine in Dynamics 365. So if I want to automatically update a team when a new opportunity is created, for example, you could define and create a flow that would do that, monitor your Dynamics 365 for a new opportunity. When the new opportunity is created, then take a series of other steps to do various other bits and pieces. So it's a workflow engine, but it's a workflow engine for lots of, not just Microsoft apps. You know, there's lots of different, if I just head over to here, we'll get an idea quickly of the sort of scope of the, here we go, currently 187 services that you can work with in terms of flow. So we looked at Teams today, we looked at Outlook, we looked at the approvals process, but there's a lot of different things that you can work with, interact with, start flows in, finish flows in, use flows to navigate, take data between the two, make notifications, that sort of thing in the system. So it's a big, and it's included, I think flow is included within Dynamics 365 licensing. So it's something that if you're on Dynamics 365 already, you already have access to. There's not a sort of additional cost to any of this. It is just part of the platform, and that's what Microsoft encouraged, interacting between platform applications. Okay. Okay, I'm running out of time. Right, so next on my slides is design updates. So this is basically aimed at administrators. So for users, this is probably something you won't ever interact with or see, but we're going to cover it anyway because it's quite a big change. So I'm going to head into my, so I'm in the customizations area of my site now. And previously on the, I think it was brought in with 8.2, we had the idea of the sitemap editor. So if I click on my sitemap, here we go. So this has been improved with version 9. So we can now do copying and pasting bits within the sitemap, that sort of thing, and adding to various bits and pieces in here, inline editing for various components. As you can see, if I put my pen over there, we can actually go in and edit all this. So it makes it a lot easier from a design point of view to actually quickly edit, make edits to sitemaps and make that live, so publishing it out and so on there. But the big change really is in the app editing structure. So I head down to my apps area here. This will take a few seconds, so bear with me. Here we go. So I can see my various apps. So we spoke about the app model, the hub model earlier on, and we can see here, these are, so the customer service hub is an app within Dynamics 365, and you can do stuff with that, edit it, but also if I go to a new app up here, immediately the first thing we can do is base apps on other apps. So if I, let's just give that a quick, there we go, test there, default image, going to be a unified interface app. We're going to use an existing solution, there we go. So from this point, we can start our app based on any of the other apps that we currently have. So actually, I'm going to create a new app based on our customer service app. I'm going to configure the sitemap later, there we go. So instead of having to code this sort of thing or being available, you know, having to, it's all very drag and drop, easy, visual. Again, the forms editor is a new thing within Dynamics 365 version 9. Sorry, views. So if I go down to the views here, in fact, I might need to come out of that and go into a different one. There we go. I'll do this pre-built one that I've got, one I prepared earlier. There we go. So I go into my views, and I can now create a new view. And again, different to how it has previously been, with the, you know, adding a new view in the system area, quite difficult, quite, you know, labor intensive, I can now literally take my fields from here, drag and drop them. So if I want, for example, I want address 1, street 1, pick it up, drag it in, that's then on the form. I want to define a filter, click this down here, add my filter, all in one view, all in one window, so easy to navigate and control. And then at the end of the day, I just save and close and publish. So similar to existing customization processes, but it's very much now a visual editor. Very easy to navigate, very easy to get through and drag and drop. So building out those and changing views now is a lot simpler going forward. Okay, we did those. Okay, lovely. And other updates. So there's one other thing. There's not a massive change, but I think it is worth mentioning. So I'm going to head back to the main area of my Dynamics and head to my dashboards area. So Power BI dashboards for Dynamics 365, you've been able to embed those now for a couple of versions. But up until this point, the idea of being able to add Power BI dashboards from different workspaces has not been possible. So you're only able to ever add stuff from your own workspace into your Dynamics 365. Now, if I go to new now, let's just wait for that to catch up with itself. There we go. Thank you. Any minute now. Oh. Right, one more refresh. Let's just close some of the other ones down while we're waiting. There we go. Lovely. So I've got my, are we going to go, is this going to be a skipper? I don't know, we'll see. Come on, just let me click this button here. That'd be lovely. This is the issue, I'm afraid, with using sandbox technology for doing demonstrations, but unfortunately we're not, because we're not in that update window yet, I can't update any of my live demonstration sites, so we're still very much reliant on the no, doesn't look like it's going to work. But basically, what the ability is here that I can add a new Power BI dashboard from another workspace. So whereas previously I've only had access to the dashboards in my own personal workspace, if you have other teams or group of other workspaces with dashboards in, you can now navigate to those and add those like any other dashboard. Okay, so just to finish off the session for today, I think Warren has got a few more bits and pieces to talk about, particularly around LinkedIn integration and obviously deprecation of various bits and pieces from version 9. So I'm just going to put myself on mute now and let Warren finish up.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, just to finish up, yeah, LinkedIn has been somewhat of a data silo, but following Microsoft's acquisition, it is now very much part of the Dynamics 365 story. Earlier this year, new integration capabilities were released to connect LinkedIn Sales Navigator with Dynamics 365. And we've embedded LinkedIn mobile profiles within Dynamics 365. It gives users more background detail about a person, and that can help with icebreakers in new lead situations. Through the interface, mutual connections can be used to ask for new instructions, and new leads can be more easily identified and brought into Dynamics. And this could be the best path to find a new buyer, and that might include finding other members of a buying committee. And with the ability to connect data, Dynamics 365 accounts and contacts can be synchronized to LinkedIn. With the records badged as shown here, it's very easy to identify which LinkedIn records exist in Dynamics. Interactions are also synchronized, including in-mail messages, which can be launched from a Dynamics 365 record. Now, something new is currently in preview is an app for LinkedIn lead gen forms, and these associate Dynamics leads with sponsored ad campaigns. When a prospect sees an ad and expresses interest by completing a web form, these submissions will be created as a new lead, and there are matching processes to map these forms to existing leads in Dynamics 365. There's a one-time authorization to sync, so lead data and campaigns will automatically be synchronized from LinkedIn down to Dynamics 365, and that creates a lot of possibilities for reviewing and reporting on these outcomes from within Dynamics 365. We've shared a lot of information about what is new, but long-standing Dynamics users especially will need to be mindful of a series of legacy functions that are being deprecated with the release of version 9. That is to say, they remain available in version 9, but they will be removed at some point in a future release. If you have any questions about how to migrate from these functions, please do get in touch and we'll be happy to help you determine the best course of action. If you want to find out more about any of these individual deprecations, as well as any of the new features that we've demonstrated today, the Dynamics 365 documentation site is now updated for version 9. We'll be sharing more content about this release through our blog, and if you aren't already receiving our email updates, you can sign up at preact.co.uk. So that concludes our presentation. Hope you found this a useful introduction to the latest version of Dynamics, and it will help in your preparations for this upgrade. We'll stay online for a few more minutes to pick up your questions, but if you do want to find out any more about the points we've covered, please do get in touch. We have been recording this presentation and you'll receive a link to this on email within the next 24 hours. You can also find recordings of all of our recent webinars on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. Our next scheduled webinar is at the same time next Thursday, the 16th of November, when we'll take a look at a new solution for finding, fixing and avoiding duplicate records in Dynamics 365. So if that's of interest, go over to our website and you'll be able to sign up for that. We will pause for a moment just to look through the many questions that I think have come through during the session. But if you are leaving us at this point, many thanks for joining us today.